The holographic display flickered to life in the center of the Galactic Council's grand chamber, revealing the image of a battered, ancient vessel drifting through the void of space. Ambassador Kethvar of the Zephyrian Empire leaned back in his crystalline chair, his 4 eyes gleaming with amusement. "This relic?" he scoffed, his translator converting his native clicks into standard Galactic. "The archaeological team expects us to believe this pathetic scrap of metal once posed a threat to anyone?" Around the circular chamber, representatives from dozens of species nodded in agreement. The ship on display appeared laughably primitive, its hull scarred and pitted, its angular design crude compared to the sleek, bioorganic vessels that dominated modern space. Admiral Thex of the Regelian Defense Force gestured dismissively with one of her tentacles. "Look at those weapon ports," she bubbled through her breathing apparatus. "Kinetic projectiles and chemical explosives. How quaint. Our children's training vessels are more sophisticated." Commander Voss, the lone human representative, remained silent in his modest section of the chamber. His weathered face betrayed no emotion as the other delegates continued their mockery. The Andromedans suggested the ship belonged in a museum as a curiosity. The Centaurian trade lords wondered if its metals could be recycled for scrap value. "The dating indicates this vessel is over 3,000 years old," announced the chief archaeologist, a spindly Altarian whose enthusiasm was clearly waning under the Council's ridicule. "Preliminary scans suggest it was involved in significant combat operations. 3,000 years ago, most species were still figuring out fire," interrupted Kethvar. "This thing probably couldn't scratch the paint on a modern shuttle." The laughter that followed echoed through the chamber's acoustic dampeners. Only Commander Voss remained unmoved, his fingers steepled before him as he studied the display with quiet intensity. "Perhaps," the Altarian archaeologist continued nervously, "we should examine the tactical records found in the ship's data banks before we—" "Spare us," Admiral Thex interjected. "What could such a primitive vessel possibly teach the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy?" Commander Voss finally stood, his movement causing the laughter to gradually subside. The chamber fell into an expectant silence as all eyes turned to the human representative. His species had only recently been granted observer status in the Council, their technology considered barely adequate for interstellar travel. "You want to know what that ship could teach you?" Voss asked quietly, his voice carrying clearly in the vast space. "That ship is the Indomitable Fury, flagship of the human colonial defense fleet." The chamber erupted in fresh laughter, but Voss continued undeterred. 3,000 years ago, that primitive relic held the line at the Battle of Kepler 442 against a destroyer fleet that outnumbered it 50-1. While your ancestors were still learning to navigate between star systems, human crews were dying by the thousands to stop an invasion that would have consumed half this galaxy. The laughter began to fade as something in the humans' tone cut through their amusement. "Those crude kinetic weapons you mock? They punched through shields that your modern ships can't penetrate. Those chemical explosives? They turned the tide of a war that lasted 2 centuries. Voss gestured to the display. "That ship and others like it are the reason most of your species exist today, instead of being cattle for the destroyer swarm." The chamber fell completely silent. Ambassador Kethvar's 4 eyes blinked in rapid sequence, a sign of deep confusion among his people. "Impossible," whispered Admiral Thex. "If humans possessed such technology 3 millennia ago, why are you now barely?" "Because we spent everything," Voss replied simply. "Every ship, every resource, every life we could spare. We burned our golden age to ash to save species that didn't even know we existed." He paused, looking around the chamber. "When the war ended, we were back to basics, rebuilding from nothing." The Altarian archaeologist's voice trembled as he spoke. "Commander, if this is true, then the tactical databases in that ship contain the complete strategic records of the longest interstellar war in galactic history," Voss confirmed, "including detailed information about destroyer technology, tactics, and weaknesses." His expression hardened. "Information we've been waiting 3,000 years for someone to ask us about." The silence stretched on, broken only by the soft hum of the chamber's life support systems. Finally, Ambassador Kethvar cleared his throat. "Perhaps," he said carefully, "we should examine those records more thoroughly." Commander Voss nodded slowly. "Perhaps you should.